How do you do, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Chicago Literary Hall of Fame Chicago Classics Quarantine Editions. My name is Floyd Sullivan. I'm a past board member of the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame and still like to help out whenever I can. I'm a writer, and I published 3 books, and you'll see a common theme here. The first one is a memoir called Waiting for the Cubs. The next one is a collection of memories and essays called Old Comiskey Park. And the most recent one is a historical novel set in the during the baseball season of 1908, and it's titled Called Out, a novel of baseball and America in 1908. So I thought it appropriate, since we are under quarantine and there is no baseball, there has not been any baseball up through the middle of July, I thought it appropriate to read something that covered baseball. And so the author I chose is Lardner, legendary sports writer who, after a short stint in South Bend, Indiana, actually got his start covering the Cubs and the White Sox in the early 20th century for Chicago newspapers. He also later on became famous for his short stories, his coverage of football, politics, World War II, you name it. He covered it all. And he was inducted into the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame in 2016. At that induction ceremony, I purchased this collection edited by Chicago sports writer Ron Rappaport called The Lost Journalism of Lardner. And Lardner is our subject. So I'm going to read an article he wrote in 1916 called Mordecai Brown, the Reporter's Friend. Now, Mordecai Brown was a pitcher for the Cubs, maybe the best pitcher in the history of the Cubs, and one of the best pitchers in the history of the game of baseball. He had a lifetime ERA of 2.06. He also had perhaps the most colorful name in baseball, in that if you put all his names and nicknames together, you could fill a small thesaurus. His full name was Mordecai Peter Centennial Three-Finger Miner Brown, also known as Brownie to the sports writers and to his teammates. The piece I'm going to read was written in 1916 as Three-Finger Brown, as he is popularly known today, was about to retire. And Lardner had a memory of him from the 1909 season. Mordecai Brown was probably the most important pitcher on a staff of great pitchers of the 1908 Cubs, the last Cub team to win a World Series until, of course, 2016. I'll read an excerpt from that column. We, editorially this time, never fully appreciated Brownie, though he had done us innumerable favors until one day in the season of 1909. It was the last day in Philadelphia, and the next stop was in New York. We had a tentative engagement in New York at 8:30 that evening, an engagement we wanted to keep. In the forenoon, we sought out Charlie Williams, the walking timetable. "Is there a train out of here for New York around 6 o'clock?" we asked. "Why? I want to get there early this evening." "So does everybody else," said Charlie. Everybody was young then. "There's a train on the Reading at 6, continued Charlie, "and we can get it at the station near the park if the game's over in time." I asked Schutzling if he'd start early, but he wouldn't, so we'll just have to take chances. The PL stands for Peerless Leader, which was the nickname of Frank Chance, first baseman and manager of the Cubs of 1908, 1909, and several other seasons. The PL tried to help by selecting as pitcher Orville Overall, one of the fastest workers in the pastime. Big Ori proved fast and effective, too, but no more effective than sparks of the enemy. At the end of the 11th, we had given up hope of an extra evening on Broadway, for it was 5:15 and everything pointed to a long tie. But in their 12th, the desperate Cubs fell upon the Philly pitcher and drove home 2 runs, the first of the game. Now, if he can just hold him, we said, and started making up the box score. But the Phillies weren't quite through. The top of their batting order was up, and whoever was leadoff man singled. Otto Knabe walked, and the next gentleman sacrificed. A base hit would tie it again, and 2 such wretched hitters as McGee and Bransfield were in line. Out went Ory and in came Brown. The tying run on second, the crowd barking at him, 1 out, and Philadelphia's best batsman to face. 6 balls Brownie pitched, 6 curveballs, the curvingest balls we ever saw, and 3 times apiece McGee and Bransfield swung and missed 3 times apiece. While the Cubs hurriedly changed their clothes, we as hurriedly wrote our story, a story about 1% as good as the game warranted. On the train, we shook the 3-fingered hand. Much obliged, Brownie. I've got a date in New York this evening. So Charlie said, replied Mr. Brown. Come on in to the next car and I'll buy you dinner. Now, Brown was a favorite among players and even among pitchers. And in the introduction, it says that the pitchers, a typical team will have pitchers that are jealous of each other, especially jealous of the ace of the staff. But Three-Finger Brown, by the way, his nickname was earned because he had not 1, but 2 farm machinery accidents when he was young that mangled his hand so that he had really only 3 working fingers. However, what that gave him was a unique grip of the baseball, and he was able to throw, as Ring Lardner so eloquently put it, the curvingest curveball in the league. And that's it for a little while from the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame. And we can't wait for baseball. Goodbye, everybody.